Thanks, Brian. I am so excited to be here today and talk to you about blazing fast block development. So let's get this show on the road and dive right in. So in my mind, there are three pillars of blazing fast block development. Pillar number one is learning, quickly learning how to build blocks. Pillar number two is building, speeding up the process of building blocks. And finally, pillar number three is publishing, painlessly publishing plugins to the WordPress plugin directory or block directory. So let's dive into learning a little bit further. In order to build blocks faster, you need to learn not only how to build blocks, but you need to develop a deeper understanding of what you can do with blocks. If you don't know what you can do with them, it's kind of hard to innovate and create something new. So we really need to learn how to build blocks. And I think the hardest part about building blocks is creating a mental model of how they fit into the block editor. These things are not simple. They're kind of abstract things, and they're a little different than we're used to doing things. So we really need to build as many blocks as we can, which is kind of the whole point of blazing fast block development, in order to map that mental model of what they can do. So let's move to pillar number two, building blocks faster. To build blocks faster, you need to literally build blocks faster. You can do this by having a development environment optimized for speed and comfort. It allows you to quickly spin up a development environment and write code as quickly as possible. We want to go from starting a server to writing code without all the setup. And there is quite a bit of setup depending on how you build your blocks. So the whole goal here with blazing fast block development is to get you from zero to writing code as quickly as possible. And finally, we want to see our updates in real time without having to wait for page reloads. Every time you make an edit to your code and you hit save, if you don't have an auto reloader, you're gonna have to manually refresh it, which that can take a ton of time. And then if you're if you're auto reloading the page on each save, it adds an extra 3 to 5 seconds. So I am super obsessed with speeding up my build process to a bit of an extreme, but my pain is your gain, because I'm going to show you how you can have it update instantly in the browser with hot module replacement. So finally, the last pillar of blazing fast block development is publishing blocks effortlessly. You need to be able to easily publish your plugins to the WordPress plugin directory. And in order to do that, you need a repeatable system for doing it. You may not be doing it every day. Hopefully, once you start using this system, you'll be doing it a lot more often. But I know there's a ton of great documentation on WordPress, but it's still a daunting process. And I tried to remove as much of the questions like, what size screenshots? What does a README file look like? What if all of that was already there for you? And then finally, like, how do you publish it? How do you submit it? How do you publish it to the directory? And then how do you maintain it afterwards? So I've got a handful of plugins in the WordPress directory, and I've used this system to publish all of them. A couple of them, one of them's turbocharged testimonial block for creating custom testimonials in the block editor. I've got another one called Pattern, where you can easily add pricing table patterns and FAQ patterns to your website. And I've got another one where you can drag and drop sections of a page from the sidebar. All of these were built using this system. And then I've got another 50 to 100 blocks that I've built just sitting here on my computer that I use internally for a lot of my projects. Okay, so how exactly can you learn, build, and publish block plugins faster? Drum roll, please. Here we go. NPX create block plugin. So before I dive into this is a package that I created, but the foundation of it is built on WordPress's create block package. Now, if you haven't seen it before, you got to check it out. It's an amazing package, and everyone that worked on that, I owe a debt of gratitude, because without that, I wouldn't be here talking to you. There's no way I would have been able to come up with this. So I kind of took that and I modified it, and I updated it for my needs, and now I want to share it with everybody because it's been so beneficial to me. So thank you for everyone that's worked on Create Block. I'm going to compare the two side by side so you'll be able to see what the differences are, because there's definitely different use cases for each one. And then just so you know, there are a few requirements in order to use this. And Create Block, the Create Block package, also has similar requirements, but I've added a few additional ones. So both Create Block and Create Block plugin require Docker and Node.js. And then this Create Block package requires Composer, GitHub, if you want it, and WP CLI. We use WP CLI to do a few things on the launch of the server. And if you don't know what npx create block plugin, or npx even means, it's basically a command. You may be used to running like npm run create block plugin, but npx it's command line for Node.js that allows you to run a script right from your terminal. So we're going to go through this together. I'm going to show you how to use it. But what all can you do with this if you run npx create block plugin? So it comes with a handful of plugin templates. You can initially pick a plugin starter template and then start building from there. So right now we're launching with one plugin template to build a static block plugin. But I've got 15 other plugin templates that I've been honing over the years. I've got plugin templates for generating dynamic block plugins, templates for generating variation blocks with variations, blocks with styles. I've even got one to generate a plugin for block patterns, like a scalable plugin for creating a block pattern plugin. And I'm going to be releasing these over time. The really interesting thing about the way this is all architected is that it gives you a scalable way of using all of the functionality that the block editor offers you together. So you could spin up each of these plugin templates separately, but then also together. And that is where we're really going to shape that mental model to see how this all fits together and really speed up your block development times. We need to create that mental model as quickly as we can. The next thing this does is it allows you to easily add Tailwind, use Sass or CSS. Now the Create Block package allows you to use Sass, but I added Tailwind to this because I feel like Tailwind is the perfect framework for building blocks, because it's all utility based and you can strip out all the stuff that you don't need. It's just like magic. It really speeds you. Like literally when I create a block, I don't have to write any CSS because I'm using Tailwind for just about everything. I've got the latest version of Tailwind in there. So if you're familiar at all with Tailwind, we've got the just-in-time mode implemented and everything. So in the past, if you've used Tailwind, it would compile all of your, it would compile this file every time you hit save. It would do it on the fly, but it was a giant file. It was like, I think it was like 2.7 megabytes. So now it scans through all of your code that you define. We've predefined it for you. And then it only builds the classes that you're using. It's freaking magic. And then also the other thing with it's really hard to set up a framework into a plugin. It's like hard to integrate them and see how they fit together. So one of the big problems is if you use a framework, some of the styles could maybe bleed out to the rest of the page. If another plugin is using utility classes like say like P10 for like padding 10, or MR0, margin right 0, if P10 in my plugin uses a different scale for the sizing of that 10, well, we're gonna have issues. So I've got everything scoped to the block so your styles don't bleed out to the rest of the page. Next up, we've got a development server. So you can optionally fire up a development server when you run that command. Create block also does this. They recently added this. And it uses the WordPress, the official WordPress WP-ENV package. I literally use it for everything. I build all of my plugins. I build all my themes. I even build all of my client sites because that's how I pay the bills with WP-ENV. And finally, it allows you to add a GitHub repository on the fly. So when you're going through the wizard, the plugin wizard, it asks you if you would like to launch a GitHub repository. This does a couple things. It allows you to implement version control, but then it also gives us the ability to effortlessly publish plugins to the WordPress plugin directory. And it does that by leveraging the amazing GitHub actions created by the folks over at 10up. You never have to look at SVN again. I've got some commands baked in there if you're familiar with SVN, where you can easily use SVN to your heart's desire. But I highly recommend checking that out once you dig into this. All right, let's do a rundown of the differences between the WordPress Create Block package or command and the Create Block plugin. So Create Block is perfect for building singular custom blocks. You can use it to build multiple blocks, but that's really where its bread and butter is. Create Block plugin is great for building multi-block plugins. Think about a block collection like CoBlocks, for example, something like that, or more complex block plugins. Both Create Block and Create Block plugin allow you to quickly set up a server environment with Docker. They both use the same WP-ENV package. Create Block is lightweight and it uses functional PHP. So imagine whenever you write a new PHP function, you have to namespace it. For Create Block plugin, it's a little more heavy-handed with the PHP and uses object-oriented programming. There is a bit of a learning curve. I had to actually learn it myself in order to do this, but the benefits I think are worth the extra weight because like I said, I'm all about speed. I don't have to think about naming a function or tacking on the namespacing or tagging on the namespacing or scoping the function. Create Block is ideal for the block directory, whereas Create Block plugin is ideal for the WordPress plugin directory. And then Create Block has automatic reloads for CSS, JS, and PHP. So whenever you make a save, an edit and save, it's gonna automatically refresh the browser. And Create Block plugin automatically reloads the browser for PHP only, but there are no page reloads for JavaScript or CSS. We actually use browser sync, so that allows us to inject CSS updates on the fly, so you can make any CSS updates and see it happen without a reload. And then JavaScript uses hot module replacement, so you can make edits to the block and watch it shape in real time. I created a package called Block Fast Refresh that allows us to do that. And I want to give attribution there too, because really the inspiration for that was a plugin or a script written by Kadam, why I butchered your name. But without being able to look at his open source plugin for that, I wouldn't have been able to create that. So huge shout out to him. And then also Create Block plugin allows you to easily add Tailwind CSS, everything's set up for you, scope to the block. And then finally, quickly publish plugins with GitHub. We've got the actions all installed there and ready to go. So with that being said, let's go build some blocks. And I'm gonna pull up my editor. I use Visual Studio Code. If you haven't used it, I highly recommend it. I made the leap from Sublime Text to Visual Studio Code. Okay, so what do we do here? I'm going to zoom in here to make this a little bigger. That should be big enough. Okay, npx, pull up the terminal, create block plugin. And this takes a couple minutes, and then it's going to walk us through a wizard to generate our plugin files. Okay, so like I said, we get to pick a plugin template. Right now we've got the one. I've got 15 in the hopper waiting to launch, but for now, let's go ahead and choose that static block. Eventually, like it says, choose the plugin templates. You can use them all together once this comes out, once I come out with more, and really you can see how to scale up your plugin. But for now, we're gonna roll with that. Okay, the plugin slug, we're gonna use, this is gonna be the folder name that ends up in the directory where you're creating this. And actually that I just made a mistake. I'm gonna get out of this because so if I run Control-C, it'll kick me back out. And I didn't go to the directory I need to generate this on, so this is a huge point. I used to use MAMP, so I'm gonna go to my MAMP htdocs folder. Okay, and then something else to keep in mind, I'm gonna run that command. If you hit up, it'll pull that npx create block plugin. So something else to keep in mind, when we pick this slug, make sure you don't pick a slug that has the same name as a folder in your directory, otherwise it's gonna overwrite it. And I've done this before and it's been devastating. So another reason to use GitHub when it asks us, so you have everything backed up. Okay, static block, and I'm gonna call this blazing fast block. I don't have a folder in my directory called that. Internal namespace, let's also call that blazing fast block. Display title, blazing fast block again. I'm gonna leave the description as is. The author is me, Lee Shadle. If you want to email me for the translations, GPL 2.0. A link to the website, wpplugin.com. Super excited about that domain name. I got it a few years ago for a great price, pretty excited. And then current version number of the plugin, 1.0. Would you like a CSS framework? Yes, I would. Tailwind. Would you like a development server? One important thing about this, if you've generated a plugin before and you've got a Docker server up and running at the same port, this is gonna fail. So if you've got Docker running and it's running something on localhost 8888 or whatever port you choose, it's not gonna work. So you need to make sure to shut that down first before you would build another block. So I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say 8888. I don't have anything running on it, I hope. I double checked before. Oops, here we go. Would you like to create a repository in GitHub? Yes, I would. It's connecting with GitHub. I've got everything connected already, so it's gonna ask me here to use my existing access token. If you don't have it already set up, then it's gonna give you instructions in line on how to do that. You'll have to create an account on GitHub, go to your account settings, and then go find your token, and then you'll just pop it in here, and then you'll have it connected. You only have to do this once, and then you can use it over and over. Okay, blazing fast block. This is another thing. If you've already got a repository in GitHub with the same name, it won't overwrite it. It's just gonna fail. It's not gonna create a repository. So I made sure I don't have one, and then a description, and then you can choose to use a personal or organization repository and make it public or private. All right, so it's creating our remote repo. It's actually already created, there it is, it's created it. And now it's installing all our dependencies. Compiling plugin files. I'm gonna go look, check this out. So here's my repository for block handbook. And if I refresh, blazing fast block. Oh, look at that magic. So cool, it's got everything there. Okay, Oh, and this is firing up our server and everything. So localhost 8888 is already firing up here. And one thing you're going to want to do is in Visual Studio Code. So what happens is we're in the root of the directory that you went into. So I'm in the root of htdocs. I'm going to want to open a new window for the project. So I'm going to do Command-Shift-N, and then I can open up that new plugin, my htdocs Blazing Fast block. And I'm going to open my terminal here. Once this is done, it's going to fire up a server and everything for us, but we'll be able to just close this out and then start working from the Blazing Fast block window over here. So this takes 5 to 10 minutes. So there might be some magic fast forwarding going on here. In the meantime, what I can do is I can start walking you through some of these folders here and files and what they do. So, okay, so as you can see, it generated a bunch of stuff here. We've got a GitHub folder. This is for our GitHub actions. A WordPress org folder. This is where the placeholder banners are and stuff. I even have sizes in here and everything. This is what you need to publish for your screenshots, your icons, everything you need in there. The build folder is where all of the compiled JavaScript and CSS go. When you build your plugin, we're gonna write all the source code in the source file, and then we're gonna build it and compile it into this build file. Because we're using the latest versions of JavaScript that aren't supported in all the browsers, we need to have this step. So behind the scenes, we're using the WordPress scripts, which includes Webpack and Babel and all kinds of stuff that allows us to work some magic so that we can use the latest and greatest. The includes file is all of our PHP files, and this I've used this for a ton of plugins, and I've found it super scalable for adding more functionality, more complex server-side functionality. Right now, we've only got enqueue scripts, load translations, and register blocks. Node modules. This is everything that's loaded from this package.json file. We define all our dependencies that we need in order to work the magic of creating all the compiled files in this build folder. So node modules when we publish our plugin and we ship it, we're not going to include that, but we need it to do our development work. Again, the source folder holds our blocks, and then also some global styles, CSS styles and Tailwind styles. So this blocks directory is super important if you want to build more than one block. All you'll do, right now we've got our static block, you'll just duplicate it, give it a different name, and then you'll have another block. I taught on Udemy how to build a scalable block plugin, and this was really complicated to do otherwise. This makes it a dream. Because we're using hot module replacement, I've baked in a package that kind of loops through each of the subdirectories in that blocks folder and then automatically registers it for you. So you don't even need to know how to register it. And here's that package I'm talking about, block fast refresh. It handles hot module replacement in development, and then in production, it's also got the function for looping through all of those folders and registering your blocks. And then here we're simply importing these are our globals. So inside the block folder, we've got our styles specific to that block for the front end and the back end. The front end is this style, and then the back end is the index.scss. And then these are our global styles. So imagine we have 10 blocks and there's some shared styles that go across all the blocks. You would put those here in the index for the back end and in the style for the front end. And then finally, we've got a Tailwind CSS file. I don't include the base Tailwind styles because I'm trying to lean on Gutenberg and WordPress as much as we can, but I do include the components and utilities. You could change that if you want to. The vendor file is generated by Composer, so we can auto-load all of the classes. There's one important function you need to run. If you add a class to this includes folder, you need to run npm run composer generate autoloader, and I'll show you that in this package.json, but that's really important. We've got our editor configuration, get ignore for GitHub, telling us, okay, ignore this node modules folder in the build folder. We don't want to store those in our repository. htaccess, I add this just because I like being able to upload bigger things, because I do use this a lot for website development. WP-env, this is used by the WP-env package where you can define your port. So if you don't want to use 8888, you can change it here. It also maps the htaccess file, so it gets bound to the Docker volume, and all of the files in this plugin are also getting mapped right here as well. And then this is our core, this is what makes this a plugin, this blazingfastblock.php. It's going to take the name of whatever slug you put on there. And like I said, this is all object-oriented. So we're using a namespace, and then here's our autoloader to automatically load all of our classes. We've got a handful of constants that are used throughout some of these includes folders. And then this class is really just super simple, class called plugin. Nothing really in the constructor. All it does here is loads, each of these functions. So your translations, it enqueues our assets, and then it also registers our blocks. bsconfig, I'm going as fast as I can. bsconfig, this is for browser sync, and it is where we connect Webpack in development, so we can get hot module replacement, automatic reloading. You can change these configurations if you want. Our composer.json file, if you needed to add some more composer packages, this is where you would do it. It's all set up for you. We've got our license. Package.json is kind of like, that's our brains of the operation, our command center. That's kind of like the place I think of where I go to first when I need to see how to do something. And then all the documentation for this package.json, all the commands that you see in here is on wpplugin.com. If something's missing, just hit me up and I'll add it, and I'd be happy to answer. There's this one section here called config, which I use in some of my more complex plugins. It's great for creating like default JavaScript configurations that you can use globally. And you'll see when we dig into building a plugin, we actually use this slug here for namespacing stuff. And then all our dependencies, I tried to use as much of the WordPress stuff as I could, because it is a ton of work. Like, they're doing a ton of work maintaining all this stuff and keeping it all up to date and compatible and from breaking. So really I've got this fast refresh package I built, this Tailwind CSS package for including Tailwind, another package I built, and then the env and scripts package and best zip for zipping files. And so the big scripts you're going to be using here are start. You'd be running npm start to start development. That kicks off, watching the files in development, hot module replacement, auto reloading. Build is for production. You would just run that for production, for compiling all your code into this build file. And then these functions for starting our Docker server, npm run server start, npm run server stop, clean, destroy. Sometimes you may run into issues and you'll need to run the server destroy. And again, here's that composer generate autoloader. There's a handful of other stuff for translations, even svn. And then down here under zip, zip is if you want to zip your plugin up and then go take it over to a WordPress install and test it out. And then a bunch of utility functions that are scripts that are just used by other scripts. We've got post CSS for including our Tailwind configuration, our README file. And then the Tailwind configuration, this is super important. If you're familiar with Tailwind, this is where you set everything. We've got just-in-time mode enabled. And this class is what scopes the styles, the Tailwind styles to each block. So this class gets generated automatically for your custom block. And so it's a wrapper around any HTML you would write, and then inside that wrapper you can write whatever Tailwind you want, and it'll automatically, just in time, compile and purge that. I've got a few defaults set here for the different screen sizes and spacing. So, okay, we've run through everything. Oh, Webpack, the Webpack config. It's as close as I could get to the default WordPress Webpack config, save for a few things for enabling hot mod replacement. So check this out. Everything launched. If we go to localhost 8888, and then you can log in at WP admin, username is admin, password is password, and you can start coding by running npm start. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up so we can check it out. Okay, so here we go, localhost 8888, go to WP admin, and then again, the username is admin, password is password, and we can log in. And this is super exciting because if you come over here to plugins, you can see Blazing Fast blocks installed. Gutenberg, we use WP CLI to install Gutenberg. That's installed. If we go to pages, I'm gonna go over to the sample page, and we can go ahead and insert our new block. Look at this magic here. So if you do /static block, boom, there we go. And I'm gonna change that. So why don't we test out the Blazing Fast block development here, where the rubber meets the road. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the Blazing Fast block directory. I'm gonna make this a little smaller so we can see it side by side. And again, remember the scripts I was telling you about in the package.json. I'm gonna run npm start. This is gonna fire up our hot module replacement. Check that out. I'm gonna minimize that actually and go right here to what happens with the hot module replacement. Because we're using browser sync, it's gonna take us to port 3000. So you'll need to go to localhost 3000, and then I can reinsert the static block. And we'll navigate to that block by going to the source directory, blocks, and this edit function, and this is gonna be fun. Again, the whole point of knowing how we're trying to create the mental model, we're trying to learn how to build blocks as fast as we can, and the whole goal is once you run through this, and hopefully after doing this workshop, you can start writing code as quickly as possible. So this edit file, the static block, is super simple. All it is a div. We're using the version 2 of the API, so we need to use this use block props hook and then attach our class name, and then it's got a paragraph in there with a handful of Tailwind classes giving it some style, and then a translated string right here. All of this generated for you. Look, check that out. We've got our text domain. If you need block controls or inspector controls, you can drop those in right there. But watch this. This is magic. Okay. I'm just going to delete that. Okay, and what the heck? So, like I said, it should automatically show you the changes over there, but it didn't. What's going on? Well, I've been messing with this, and if I do inspect, we might see an error, and you're going to run into this too. I can't find this hot update. Okay, because it cached an old version. So, super simple. All we got to do is reload this, and we can try it again. Okay, and so now if I make an edit, it should show up in real time. Check that out. How cool is that? This is so fun. I mean, nothing is more fun than building blocks like in real time like this. So here we go. Okay, and then you can start messing around with some of these Tailwind classes in real time too. Okay, look at that. 10, let's make it 50, 60? Is there a 60? I can't remember. Yeah, there is a 60. Let's go back to 10. Let's do double. I think there's a border double. Maybe not. I'm gonna go back to solid. Or maybe I'll just do border 0. Check that out. Solid. Let's make the text bigger. 4XL. It's so cool. I love doing this. So like, you never really do need to write any CSS now. You're writing Tailwind in real time. You're writing this. Watch this. So if I duplicate this, this gets really fun. You can start. Look, check out both of them. I'm gonna do rounded full. Okay, I could just do this all day. So right now you're up and running quickly. You're using Tailwind, and you can start writing. Just start writing HTML in here, and start building some blocks. The save, all of this is all set up for you. So we've got the index.js file. This is where we export these to be caught by that block fast refresh and register our blocks. We've got our icon. We got our backend styles, our save file. We even have a transform file boilerplate set up because that it's not super straightforward to set that up. And then a deprecated folder as well. Everything's set up here. I've even got all the code in here. So if you end up creating this and want to play around with that, you're all good to go. Okay, so I think I'm over time, so I just got way too excited. I can't even remember what I have to do here. I need to go back to my slides here. And if you want to learn more, follow me on Twitter at Lee Shadle, twitter.com/Lee Shadle for block-based plugin, theme, and website building tips, tricks, and tools. And finally, again, the fastest way to learn, build, and publish WordPress plugins is at wpplugin.com. I have a free blazing fast block development course there where I walk through the setup of all of this as well, and then go into even more detail. And then like I said, I'm going to be releasing some new plugin templates here soon, and each one I'm hoping to release with a quick course walkthrough. So thank you again so much for having me. It's been a blast, and go build some blocks. Share them with me on Twitter. I would love to see what you build, and thanks again.